Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, the controversy of Amazon Lord of the Rings continues. And it seems that, well, as many people try to defend this Amazon Lord of the Rings, I'm going to let the words of j.r.r. Tolkien himself determine whether or not Amazon Lord of the Rings, which cares more about diversity and representation and less about telling the story of Tolkien's work, I'm going to let him speak to what or how he felt of a previous attempt at Lord of the Rings and what he thinks not telling the core story means. So this is coming from Bounding into Comics from John F. Trent. J.r.r. Tolkien torched a Lord of the Rings film treatment for being treated carelessly, recklessly, and showing no evident signs of any appreciation of what it is all about. Now, Tolkien, the creator of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, torched a film treatment for an adaptation of Lord of the Rings back in June of '58. In letter 210 to Forrest J. Ackerman, Tolkien did not hold back in his criticism of the film treatment, and it gives us an idea of what he might have thought about Amazon Studios' upcoming adaptation in Lord of the Rings of Power. Towards the beginning of the letter, Tolkien preemptively apologizes for his tone used in this commentary of the film treatment. He wrote, "If Mr. Zimmerman and or others do so, they may be irritated or aggrieved by the tone of many of my criticisms. If so, I am sorry, though not surprised." Tolkien went on to explain the apology, but I would ask them to make an effort of imagination sufficient to understand the irritation and, on occasion, the resentment of an author who finds increasingly, as he proceeds, his work treated, as it would seem, carelessly in general, in places recklessly, and with no evident signs of any appreciation of what it is all about. Next, Tolkien makes it very clear that canon should be respected no matter what the medium is. The canons of narrative in any medium cannot be wholly different, and the failure of poor films is often precisely in exaggeration and in the intrusion of unwarranted matter owing to not perceiving where the core of the original lies. He also took issue with Zimmerman reducing the story to a series of fights. He has cut the parts of the story upon which the characteristic and peculiar tone principally depends, showing a preference for fights. And he has made no serious attempt to represent the heart and the tale adequately, the journey of the ring bearers. Tolkien went on to claim that Zimmerman murdered the story writing. The last and most important pan of this has, and it is not too strong a word, simply been murdered. One of Tolkien's criticisms of the treatment was also the contraction of time, something Amazon Studios is doing in their show. Showrunner J.D. Payne explained the decision to contract the timeline in the Rings of Power. If you are true to the exact letter of the law, you are going to be telling a story in which your human characters are dying off every season because you're jumping 200 years in time, and then you're not meeting really big, important canon characters until season 4. Well, here's the thing, J.D. Payne. Tolkien knew all of this. That's why he sold the movie rights for $1, because he knew that none of his works could faithfully be expressed 100%. Look, there might be some fans who want us to do a documentary of Middle-earth But we're going to tell one story that unites all these things, he added. Well, then Tolkien would disagree and be very ashamed of how you are handling his work. If his letters about that 58 treatment is any indication. Tolkien criticized the contraction of time in the treatment, writing, "Here I may say that I fail to see why the time scheme should be deliberately contracted. It is already packed in the original, the main action occurring between September 22nd and March 25th of the following year. The many possibilities and absurdities which further hurrying produces might, I suppose, be unobserved by an uncritical viewer. But I do not see why they should be unnecessarily introduced. Time must naturally be left vaguer in a picture than in a book, but I cannot see why definite time statements, contrary to the book and to probability, should be made," he added. While discussing the use of lembas in the script, Tolkien expresses that he would resent perversions of his characters. "I do earnestly hope that in the assignment of actual speeches to the characters they will be represented as I have presented them, in style and in sentiment. I should resent perversion of the characters, and do resent it, so far as it appears in this sketch, even more than the spoiling of the plot and scenery." There you have it right there, folks. The black elves and black dwarves were not a thing of Tolkien's creation. Representation for representation's sake is racist, first off. Secondly, when you are doing something as beloved and cherished as Tolkien's work, you should honor the author, not your own agenda. Kind of like what Peter Jackson did. The Rings of Power have made it clear that they do intend to pervert Tolkien's characters. In a puff piece to promote the show for Vanity Fair, Prime Video revealed that they are radically altering Galadriel's role as well as her personality. She is described as commander of the Northern armies, as well as being angry and brash as she is clever. The justification of this new personality, as opposed to the one of Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Silmarillion, is that she's thousands of years younger. It doesn't mean shit, especially when it comes to elves. The problem with that is that Galadriel was actually born before the First Age. So, by the time the Rings of Power is to take place, the Second Age, she has lives of experience in comparison to humans. Tolkien also appeared to be a stickler when it came to details. For example, he criticized the way the treatment depicted the staircase leading to Orthanc, the tower controlled by Saruman the White. He wrote, "The spiral staircase weaving around the tower Orthanc comes from Z's fantasy, Zimmerman's, not my tale. I prefer the latter. My tower was 500 feet high. There was a flight of 27 steps leading to the great door, above which was a window and a balcony," which actually was depicted quite faithfully in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. On the other hand, Tolkien was also in favor of completely cutting out portions of the book that did not align with his writings. While discussing the defense of the Hornburg, he noted he was in favor of cutting out the entire battle in favor of the Ents. And for those of you who do not know, Tolkien was indeed a nature-loving person. He was very much indeed against technology in many respects. He explained, "I am afraid that I do not find the glimpse of the defense of the Hornburg. This would be a better title, since Helm's Deep, the ravine behind, is not shown entirely satisfactory. It would, I guess, be a fairly meaningless scene in a picture stuck in this way." Actually, I find, or I myself, should be inclined to cut it right out, if it cannot be made more coherent and a more significant part of the story, Tolkien boldly declared. So yeah, he further elaborated, if both the Ents and the Hornburg cannot be treated at sufficient length to make sense, then one should go. Tolkien explained his choice. It should be the Hornburg, which is incidental to the main story, and there would be this additional gain that we are going to have a big battle of which as much should be made as possible, but battles tend to be too similar. The big one would gain by having no competitor. Tolkien's arguably largest criticism comes at the end of the letter. He writes, Pan 3 is totally unacceptable to me, as a whole and in detail. If it is meant as notes only for a section of something, like a pictorial length of 1 and 2, then in the filling out it must be brought to the relation with the book, and its gross alterations of that corrected. If it means to represent only a kind of short finale, then all I can say is The Lord of the Rings cannot be garbled like that, he concluded. So yes, what do you make of Tolkien's criticisms of this film treatment of The Lord of the Rings? How do you think he would react to what Amazon is doing in The Rings of Power? Honestly, I think that Tolkien would not appreciate how The Lord of the Rings is being treated by Amazon. I do not think that they are respecting his wishes of how his works should be told. And I think that all they care about is diversity and inclusivity, which is rather exclusionary considering how Hollywood and other studios are treating people nowadays. But anyway, folks, I did want to get this video out there because I do feel it is important that we do hear what Tolkien would have to say about his works being perverted for other people's gain. Anyway, folks, that will be the video. You all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know what you would think about all of this. Your thoughts in the comment section below, folks. Anyway, this has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay humble.